Hello guys, and welcome to another episode of my lecture. On today's lecture, we'll be discussing rotation of directors. And so let's go straight to our class today. So according to section 285, which discusses rotation of directors, subsection 1 tells us unless the articles provides, which means that this section is a default section. Default section meaning that it has mandatory and enabling provisions. The enabling provision here says that the articles has the authority to provide otherwise. But where the articles do not provide for how the directors should retire, then this provision will apply on such company because this provision becomes mandatory. So subsection 1 tells us that unless the articles otherwise provides, at the first annual general meeting of a company, all the directors shall retire from office. That's the first leg. And at the annual general meeting in every subsequent year, 1/3 of the directors, or if their number is not 3 or a multiple of 3, then the number nearest 1/3 shall retire from office. So let us pick the first leg that says at the first annual general meeting of the company, all the directors shall retire from office. It means that if you are drafting the articles of a company and you did not ask them certain questions as to how long the directorship position should go for, then this provision will apply on that company to say that directorship shall be for 1 year, because it says that at the next annual general meeting, it didn't say some directors, it said all the directors shall retire. All shall retire. That is what this provision is telling us. Now, when you read the next one, which says at the subsequent annual general meeting. So let's say that a particular company was incorporated in January. Do you understand? It got its certificate of incorporation in January. So therefore, the next annual general meeting should be around December or January next year. Abi? Now, if you don't provide it in your articles that the period of office for directors shall be 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, it means that this provision will apply and it shall be 1 year. Not just that. In the first annual general meeting in that December or January, it means that every director that was a director in incorporation, that's first appointment under section 272 of Cama. First appointment, every first appointed director shall retire. That's what this provision is saying. And at the annual general meeting in every subsequent year, 1/3, if you have 9 directors as first appointed directors, after the first general meeting, all of them retire. And they have to then appoint what is known as subsequent directors under section 273. Now, you see, for those subsequent directors, it will then mean that every annual general meeting, after the first annual general meeting, 1/3 of those directors shall retire. Now, when we are saying 1/3, what does it mean? So let's say they have about 9 directors in that particular company. That will mean that in every year, 3 out of those 9 directors shall retire. Now, if their number is not up to 3 or a multiple of 3, then the number nearest to 1/3 shall retire from office. So now let's go to subsection 2 of this section. It says that the directors to retire in every year are those who have been longest in office since their last election. But as between people who became directors on the same day, those to retire are determined by lot unless they agree amongst themselves. Do you understand? So when you are talking about the next subsequent year, you say 3 people must retire. Those 3 people that are to retire are those in the order of how long they've stayed as directors. So if you have people who have stayed as directors for 2 years, for 3 years and all that, then those people are meant to retire first. Now, is it possible for you to stay for 2 years and 3 years under this? Yes, if you are re-elected. So on a normal day, the more you get re-elected, the more you are the one that's supposed to retire at the next general meeting, except you are re-elected again. Do you understand? Now, where we have two people on the same day that the God appointed, it means those two people are supposed to retire. But because only one of them should retire, why? Okay, so we are talking about a company of 9, Abi, and we said that 3 out of them should retire. Now, 2 people have already been determined for retirement. Now, it remains one. The one that they are looking for, 2 people on the same day God appointed. We are not determining who is supposed to retire first, this one or that one. Now they tell us that 2 things can be done. Number 1, it is either determined by a lot who should retire, or number 2, they agree amongst themselves. Now we then go to subsection 3 that tells us that the company at the meeting at which a director retires in the manner mentioned in subsection 1 and 2 may fill the vacated office by electing a person to that office, and in default the retiring director is, if offering himself for election, deemed to have been re-elected, unless at such meeting it is expressly resolved not to fill such vacated office, or unless a resolution for the re-election of such director have been put to the meeting and lost. Now you see, this provision is quite complicated. First of all, this provision is only applicable to those directors through subsection 1 and subsection 2 of section 285. Do you understand? That's the first thing that we need to know. The second thing is that every director that is to retire in the next annual general meeting, if he puts himself up for re-election, he is automatically re-elected. That's what the provision of Cama section 285 is saying. Section 285 tells us that where a person who is a director puts himself up for re-election in the next general meeting, then he is automatically re-elected except on 3 grounds. Now section 285 subsection 3 gives us 3 grounds where that particular director will not be re-elected into his office. The first one is when there has been another person elected to fill his position. Secondly, where there has been an express resolution for that director not to fill his vacated office. And then number 3, where there has been a resolution for re-election in that meeting and the director lost. So those are the 3 times that a director who is to retire under subsection 1 and under subsection 2 of section 285 of Cama will not be re-elected. The provision of the Cama says where he has been put up for re-election and he lost, or where there has been an express resolution in the meeting that he should not be re-elected, and number 3, where another person has been re-elected in his position. Do you understand? So this provision tells us how exactly a director is supposed to retire from office, what will be the period of office, the statutory period of office, where there is nothing stated otherwise in the articles. And when we look at section 285 sub 1, it tells us that it is 1 year, and in the first annual general meeting all directors retire. In subsequent meetings, then 1/3 of the directors are supposed to retire. Subsection 2 gives us the manner by which the directors are supposed to retire. It tells us that the longest in office is supposed to retire. When we have 2 people where only one person is supposed to retire, then we are to determine that by either a lot or they agree amongst themselves. Then we have subsection 3 that says that where somebody is supposed to retire by virtue of subsection 1 or by virtue of subsection 2, and he puts himself for re-election, he is automatically re-elected without them having to vote for him. He is automatically re-elected. The only time that is not going to apply is if number 1, someone else has been elected in his position, or number 2, there has been an express resolution that he should not be re-elected, or number 3, there is a resolution for a re-election in that meeting and he lost. Those are the 3 instances where he will no longer be a director under section 285. So in my next class, I'll be discussing mode of appointment. See you in my next class.